Welcome to another journey through the quiet corridors of history, where the past unfolds gently before you. Tonight, we invite you to settle into a moment of calm, to let your mind drift back to the early days of colonial America time, when settlers carved out new lives in a raw, untamed land. This is boring history for sleep, and our story tonight explores the gritty, often overlooked details of life in those early settlements. Imagine yourself in a world of wooden cabins, muddy paths, and the faint crackle of a fire in the hearth. There's no rush here, no urgency, just the slow, steady rhythm of lives lived long ago. As you listen, let the weight of the day slip away, and allow the soft cadence of history to carry you toward rest. We'll wander through 4 distinct corners of this world. First, we'll immerse ourselves in the daily routines of ordinary settlers, where every task was shaped by the land's demands and the struggle to survive. Then, we'll step into the life of a single-figure person whose story reflects the broader challenges of the time. After that, we'll explore the mysteries and archaeological traces left behind, piecing together what they reveal about colonial life. Finally, we'll contrast the hardships of the common folk with the lives of the elite, whose comforts were hard-won in a world of scarcity. Each step of this journey is woven with care, designed to inform and soothe, to hold your attention gently, or let you drift into sleep. So find a comfortable place, close your eyes if you wish, and imagine yourself standing at the edge of a colonial settlement. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. The distant clatter of tools and the low murmur of voices fill the silence. Let's begin. Asterisk, asterisk. Picture yourself in a small colonial settlement, perhaps Jamestown in its early years, or a fledgling village along the Massachusetts coast. It's the late 16th or early 17th century, and the world around you is both vast and confining. The forest looms at the edge of the clearing, its dense shadows a constant reminder of the wilderness beyond. Your home, if you can call it that, is a modest structure of rough-hewn logs or wattle and daub, its walls patched with clay to keep out the wind. The roof, thatched or shingled with hand-split wood, leaks during heavy rains. And the floor is often nothing more than packed earth, cool and damp beneath your feet. This is the rhythm of life in a colonial settlement, a rhythm dictated by survival, shaped by the land, and marked by a constant struggle against the elements. Each morning begins with the faint glow of dawn filtering through a small, unglazed window. The air inside your home is heavy with the scent of last night's fire, now reduced to embers. You rise from a straw-filled mattress or a simple pallet on the floor, the coarse fabric of your blanket scratching against your skin. There's no lingering in the warmth of your bed. The day's work waits, and it is relentless. Water must be fetched from a nearby stream or well, a task that requires hauling heavy wooden buckets over uneven ground. The stream, if you're lucky, runs clear, but often it's clouded with silt or fouled by animals. Boiling the water is a habit born of necessity, as illness lurks in unclean sources. You carry the buckets back, your arms aching, the cold metal handle biting into your palms. The hearth is the heart of your home, a smoky, flickering center where meals are prepared and warmth is coaxed from dwindling firewood. Cooking is a labor-intensive process. You grind corn or wheat by hand, using a stone mortar or a crude quern, the repetitive motion wearing at your shoulders. The flour, coarse and speckled with grit, is mixed with water or milk from a cuve. You're fortunate enough to have one to make a simple porridge or flatbread. Meat, when available, comes from hunting or the occasional slaughter of livestock. But it's often scarce, especially in the early years of a settlement. You might stew a rabbit or a squirrel, the broth thin but fragrant with wild herbs gathered from the forest's edge. The scent of the stew mingles with the ever-present smell of smoke, which clings to your clothes and hair. Sanitation, or the lack of it, defines much of your daily existence. There's no indoor plumbing, no easy way to dispose of waste. Most settlers rely on a privia simple pit latrine dug a short distance from the house. In the summer, the stench is overpowering, a thick cloud that draws flies and lingers in the humid air. In winter, the ground freezes, making the task of digging or maintaining the privy even more arduous. Waste from cooking or cleaning is often tossed into a midden heap near the house, where it attracts vermin and adds to the settlement's pervasive odor. Bathing is a rare luxury, reserved for special occasions or warmer months when you can brave the chilly stream. Instead, you wipe your hands and face with a damp cloth, the water tinged gray from use. Clothing, too, is a constant challenge. Most settlers own only 1 or 2 sets of garments made of homespun wool or linen. These are patched and mended until they're threadbare, the fabric stiff with dirt and sweat. Washing clothes means hauling more water, heating it over the fire, and scrubbing with lye soap that burns your skin. The process is so time-consuming that laundry is often delayed until the garments are nearly unwearable. Imagine yourself standing by the fire, stirring a steaming pot of laundry, the sharp scent of lye mixing with the damp wool's musty odor. It's a task that leaves your hands raw and your back aching, but clean clothes are a small victory in a world where filth is a constant companion. The land itself is both provider and adversary. You spend hours tending crops: corn, beans, squash, or tobacco planted in small, laboriously cleared fields. The soil is often poor, rocky, or choked with weeds, and every harvest is a gamble against drought, pests, or early frost. Tools are basic: a wooden plow pulled by an ox, if you're lucky, or a hoe wielded by hand. The work is backbreaking, the sun relentless, and the threat of hunger ever present. In Jamestown's early years, starvation was a grim reality, with settlers resorting to eating leather, rats, or even, in the darkest moments, the remains of their own. Yet, even in better times, food is monotonous and malnutrition weakens bodies. Already taxed by labor and disease, in fact, is a shadow that never lifts. The close quarters of a settlement, combined with poor sanitation, make illness a constant threat. Fevers, dysentery, and smallpox sweep through communities, leaving devastation in their wake. A simple cut from a rusty tool can lead to infection. And without modern medicine, recovery is uncertain. Herbal remedies, passed down or learned from local indigenous peoples, offer some relief, but their effectiveness is limited. Imagine yourself tending to a sick child, the air thick with the sour smell of illness. The only medicine a bitter tea brewed from willow bark or yarrow. The fear of loss is a quiet undercurrent, but you press on because survival demands it. Children, despite the hardships, are a vital part of the settlement's rhythm. They work alongside adults from a young age, fetching water, gathering firewood, or minding younger siblings. Education is a luxury, often limited to basic reading or ciphering, taught by a parent or a traveling preacher. Play is simple games of tag, carved wooden toys, or stories told by the fire, but it's fleeting, overshadowed by the demands of survival. The laughter of children, when it comes, is a rare and precious sound, cutting through the settlement's constant hum of labor. The community itself is a fragile web of interdependence. Neighbors rely on each other for shared tasks like raising a barn or harvesting crops. Barter is common, with goods like tobacco, furs, or homemade tools exchanged. For necessities, disputes arise over land boundaries, stray livestock, or unpaid debts, but they're often settled through communal meetings, where voices are raised but violence is rare. The church, whether a simple meeting house or a more formal structure, is a focal point, its sermons offering both spiritual guidance and a rare moment of rest. Yet even here, the realities of colonial life intrude. The pews are hard, the air cold, and the preacher's voice drones on, lulling you into a half-dreaming state. As the day draws to a close, you return to your home, the fire now a low glow. The evening meal is simple, perhaps a bowl of cornmeal mush or a piece of cornbread dipped in broth. The light fades and the settlement grows quiet, save for the distant howl of a wolf or the creak of a neighbor's door. You lie down on your pallet, the straw rustling beneath you, and pull the blanket close. The world outside is vast and uncertain. But within these walls, there's a fragile sense of safety. The rhythm of your life fetching water, tending crops, mending clothes will begin again tomorrow. As steady and unyielding as the seasons, this was the daily life of a colonial settler. A life of labor and endurance shaped by the land and tempered by hardship. The filth, the scarcity, the constant threat of illness, these were not exceptions, but the very fabric of existence. Yet within this struggle, there was resilience, a quiet determination to build something lasting. As we leave this immersion behind, let's turn our attention to a single figure whose life reflects these broader challenges, a person whose story, like so many others, is woven into the tapestry of colonial America. The life of Anne Hutchinson in a harsh colonial world. Imagine yourself in the Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 1630s, where the air carries the sharp temps of salt from the nearby sea and the faint sweetness of freshly cut timber. The settlement is a cluster of modest homes, their chimneys trailing thin streams of smoke into the gray sky. Among these homes lives a woman whose name would echo through history, not for wealth or conquest, but for the strength of her convictions in a world that demanded conformity. Her name is Anne Hutchinson, and her story is one of resilience, defiance, and the quiet struggles of life in a fledgling colony. As you settle deeper into this tale, let the rhythm of her desert rhythm shaped by faith, labor, and the weight of a community's judgment carry you gently along. Anne Hutchinson was born Anne Marbury in 1591 in Alfred, England, a world away from the muddy streets of Boston. Picture her as a young woman, her hands busy with the tasks of a clergyman's daughter, spinning wool, its soft fibers catching on her calloused fingers. Tending to younger siblings, their voices a constant hum in a crowded household, or listening to her father's theological debates, the words weaving intricate patterns in her sharp, curious mind. The air in her English home was warm with the scent of bread baking in a stone oven, a stark contrast to the damp, smoky cabins she would later know. Her father, a Puritan with unorthodox leanings, taught her to question, to read Scripture with a critical eye, and to trust her own understanding of God's Word. These lessons, planted in the quiet of her youth, would grow into the roots of her courage and her conflict in the New World by 1634. Anne, now a wife and mother, arrived in Boston with her husband, William, and their many children. The journey across the Atlantic was grueling, the ship's hold heavy with the sour smell of unwashed bodies and the constant creak of wood against the sea's relentless waves. Imagine her standing on the deck, her cloak damp with spray, her eyes fixed on the horizon where a new life waited. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was a place of promise for Puritans seeking religious freedom. But it was also a place of hardship, where survival demanded as much from the spirit as from the body. Anne's family settled into a modest home, its walls of rough planks sealed with clay. The floor a hard-packed expanse of earth that grew muddy in the rain. The scent of pine and wood smoke filled the air, mingling with the faint, ever-present odor of the nearby privy. Anne's days were consumed by the same labors as those of other settlers. She rose before dawn, her breath visible in the chilly air, to kindle the fire and prepare a simple meal, perhaps a porridge of cornmeal, its texture gritty against the tongue. As a mother of many children, her hands were rarely idle. She mended clothes, the needle pricking her fingers as she worked by candlelight. She churned butter, the rhythmic thud of the churn a steady counterpoint to the cries of her youngest. She tended a small garden, coaxing herbs and vegetables from the stubborn soil. The colony's filth was a constant challenge. Water fetched from a well or stream was often cloudy, and washing was a luxury deferred for days or weeks. The family's clothes, stiff with dirt, were scrubbed with lye soap that stung her skin. The task, leaving her hands raw and her back aching, yet Anne's life was not defined by labor alone. Her mind, honed by years of study and debate, found its outlet in the spiritual life of the colony. The Puritans of Massachusetts Bay were bound by a shared faith, but their community was rigid, its leaders wary of dissent. Anne began holding meetings in her home, gatherings where women and later men came to discuss sermons and scripture. Picture her seated by the hearth, her voice steady and clear, the firelight casting soft shadows on the faces around her. The room smells of damp wool and the faint sweetness of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. Her words, rooted in her belief that God spoke directly to the faithful, offered a vision of grace that challenged the colony's strict orthodoxy. To her listeners, she was a beacon of insight. To the authorities, she was a threat. The colony's leaders, men like Governor John Winthrop, saw Anne's teachings as dangerous. They lived in a world where order was fragile, where disease and hunger could unravel a settlement in a season. Imagine the tension in the meeting house, its air thick with the scent of unwashed bodies and the faint mustiness of damp wood. As Anne stood trial in 1637, the charges were vague heresy, sedition, but the real crime was her refusal to conform. Her voice, calm but unyielding, answered their accusations with scripture and logic, her words cutting through the heavy silence. The trial was not a spectacle of violence, but its consequences were profound. Lives could be upended, families torn apart, not by bloodshed, but by banishment. Anne's fate was sealed when she claimed divine revelation, a step too far for a community. Clinging to its fragile unity, banishment was a heavy blow in a world where survival depended on community. In 1638, Anne and her family were cast out, forced to leave the relative safety of Boston for the wilderness of Rhode Island. Picture her walking along a muddy trail, her children trailing behind, their shoes sinking into the damp earth. The air is sharp with the scent of pine and the distant tank of salt, but the path is uncertain, the future unknown. They settled in what would become Portsmouth, a place of raw possibility but also relentless hardship. The family built a new home, its walls as crude as those they left behind, the roof leaking in the rain. The tasks of survival, fetching water, planting crops, guarding against illness, began anew. Each day a testament to their endurance. Anne's life in Rhode Island was quieter, but no less challenging. The colony was a haven for dissenters, but it lacked the structure of Boston. Its settlers scattered and its resources scarce. Disease remained a constant shadow. Fevers swept through families, leaving empty places at the table, the loss of children. A grim reality of the time touched Anne's family as it did so many others. Yet she continued her work, tending to the sick as a midwife, her hands steady as she brewed herbal remedies or soothed a fevered brow. The scent of yarrow and chamomile clung to her fingers, a small comfort in a world where healing was uncertain. Her story took its final turn in 1643, when tragedy struck in a new settlement in New Netherland, near what is now New York. The details are softened by time, but conflict with local indigenous peoples, fueled by the tensions of colonial expansion, led to a devastating attack. Anne and most of her family were lost, their lives extinguished in a moment of chaos. The event was a stark reminder of the fragility of existence in this new world, where alliances were tenuous and the land unforgiving. Yet, even in its sorrow, Anne's story is not one of despair. She lived with purpose, her faith and intellect, a quiet rebellion against the constraints of her time. Anne Hutchinson's life was a thread in the tapestry of colonial America, woven through with the filth and hardship of daily existence. Her home, like those around her, was a place of smoke and labor, its air heavy with the realities of survival. Her courage, though, was a light in that darkness. a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, the human spirit could seek meaning. As we leave Anne's story behind, let's turn to the traces she and others left in the earth, the artifacts and mysteries that archaeologists uncover, revealing the hidden rhythms of colonial life. Unearthing the traces of colonial life. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of a quiet field, where the wind carries the faint scent of wild grasses and the distant murmur of a river. The year is now, but the ground beneath your feet holds secrets. From centuries past, this is a place where colonial settlers once lived, where their homes stood, their fires burned, and their struggles unfolded. The wooden cabins and muddy paths are long gone, reclaimed by time, but the earth itself remembers. Archaeologists, with their careful brushes and patient hands, have uncovered fragments of this lost world: broken pottery, rusted tools, the faint outlines of hearths. These artifacts, humble and weathered, tell a story of life in colonial settlements. A story woven with the filth and resilience of those early days. As you listen, let the slow rhythm of discovery guide you, a gentle invitation to drift through history or toward sleep. The archaeology of colonial America is a quiet pursuit, a piecing together of lives from the smallest clues. Picture a dig site in Jamestown, Virginia, where the soil is dark and damp, its surface crisscrossed with string to mark precise grids. The air smells of turned earth, rich and loamy, with a faint metallic temps where tools have struck buried. Iron. Each scrape of a trowel reveals something new, a shard of coarse earthenware, its glaze chipped but still gleaming faintly in the sunlight. A bent nail, its surface pitted with rust, or a small bone, perhaps from a deer or a fish, smoothed by time. These objects, so ordinary in their day, are now treasures, each one a whisper from a world where survival was a daily negotiation with the land. The filth of colonial life is etched into these findings. Consider the middens refuse heaps where settlers discarded broken tools, food scraps, and household waste. Archaeologists uncover these piles near the foundations of homes, their contents a gritty testament to daily existence. Imagine the midden as it was then, a heap of oyster shells, their edges sharp and crusted with mud, fish bones slick with decay, and broken bits of clay pipes, their stems snapped from use. The smell would have been sharp, a mix of rotting food and damp earth, drawing flies and scavenging animals. Yet these heaps were not just waste, they were a record of survival. The oyster shells speak of meals scraped from the nearby rivers, the bones of fish caught with nets or hooks, the pipes of moments of rest when tobacco smoke curled into the evening air. Sanitation, or its absence, left other traces. Excavations often reveal private cello pits that served as latrines, their locations marked by darker, richer soil. Picture a team of archaeologists sifting through one such pit, their gloves stained as they extract fragments of glass, pottery, or even seeds from long-ago meals. The privy's contents tell a story of diet and disease, cherry pits and grape. Seeds suggest a reliance on local fruits, while pollen grains hint at the herbs used for medicine or cooking. But the soil also holds grimmer clues. Parasite eggs, microscopic and preserved in the damp earth, point to the illnesses that plagued settlers' worms that sapped strength, spread through contaminated water or food. The air around these pits, in their time, would have been thick with the stench of human waste, a constant reminder of the struggle to maintain health in a world without modern sanitation. The homes themselves, or what remains of them, offer another window into colonial culture. Archaeologists find post holes, small, dark circles in the earth where wooden posts once supported walls. These mark the outlines of houses, often smaller than you might imagine, their interiors cramped and smoky. The soil within these outlines is packed hard, a testament to years of footsteps on earthen floors. Charcoal flecks and ash layers speak of hearths that burned day and night, their smoke staining the walls and clinging to clothes. Imagine standing in such a home, the air heavy with the scent of burning pine, the floor cool and slightly damp. Underfoot, the artifacts found here: spindle whorls for spinning wool, iron pots blackened by fire, or a single glass bead traded from a far paint, a picture of labor and ingenuity, of lives spent coaxing order from chaos. One mystery that archaeologists often ponder is the diet of these early settlers. The bones and seeds unearthed tell a tale of adaptation. In Jamestown's early years, starvation was a looming threat, and the earth holds evidence of desperate measures: bones of rats, cats, and even horses butchered for food when crops failed, and game was scarce. These findings are not a story of horror, but of endurance, a quiet testament to the will to survive. The settlers learned from the land and its indigenous peoples, planting corn and squash, fishing the rivers, and gathering wild berries. Pollen from these crops, preserved in the soil, shows how the settlers' diet shifted over time, blending old world traditions with new world necessities. The taste of cornbread, coarse and slightly sweet, or a stew thickened with beans, became the rhythm of their meals, a rhythm that sustained them through hunger and cold. The cultural life of the colonies also emerges from the earth. Clay pipes, their bowls decorated with simple patterns, speak of moments of rest. When men and women sat by the fire, puffing on tobacco grown in nearby fields. The scent of tobacco smoke, earthy and slightly bitter, would have mingled with the ever-present wood smoke, a brief comfort in a hard day. Pottery fragments, some imported from England, others made locally, show the settlers' efforts to maintain a sense of familiarity. A cracked Delft plate, its blue glaze faded, might have held a rare treat bit of preserved fruit or a slice of venison served on a special occasion. These objects, though broken, carry the weight of aspiration, of people striving to build a life in a land that offered little mercy. Yet not all findings are so tangible. The layout of a settlement's houses clustered near a central well or meeting house reveals a culture of community, where survival depended on shared labor. The faint traces of paths worn into the earth by countless footsteps show how settlers moved through their world, to the fields, to the stream, to the church. The meeting house itself, often little more than a wooden frame with rough benches, was a place of gathering, its air heavy with the scent of damp wool and candle wax. Here sermons droned on, their cadence as steady as the ticking of a clock, offering both guidance and a moment to rest. The artifacts of faith's simple crosses, worn prayer books, speak of a people whose beliefs anchored them, even as the land tested their resolve. The archaeology of colonial life is a study in contrasts, the fragility of human endeavor against the permanence of the earth. Each artifact, each layer of soil, is a piece of a larger puzzle, revealing a world where filth was a constant companion, yet resilience was the heartbeat. The settlers' lives were shaped by the land's demands, by the need to find food, to stay warm, to fend off illness. Their story, uncovered one trowel scrape at a time, is not one of triumph or tragedy, but of quiet persistence. As we leave these buried traces behind, let's turn our gaze to the other side of colonial life. World of the elite, whose comfort stood in stark contrast to the struggles of the many, yet were still bound by the same unforgiving realities. The divide between commoners and the elite. Imagine yourself standing at the heart of a colonial settlement, perhaps Williamsburg or Boston in the late 17th century, where the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of drying tobacco leaves. The settlement hums with activity, the clatter of a blacksmith's hammer, the creak of a cart rolling over muddy ruts, the distant laughter of children. Most of the homes are modest, their walls of weathered wood or wattle and daub, their roofs sagging under the weight of time. but here and there, a larger house stands apart, its windows glazed with precious glass, its chimneys sending up a steady plume of smoke. These are the homes of the colonial elite, men and women whose lives, though still touched by the filth and hardship of the New World, were marked by comforts unavailable to the common settler. As you listen, let the contrast between these worlds unfold a gentle rhythm to carry you through the past or toward rest. The common settler's life, as we've seen, was one of relentless labor. Picture a farmer rising at dawn, his hands rough from years of wielding a hoe, his clothes patched and stiff with dirt. His home is a single room, its earthen floor damp from last night's rain. The air heavy with the smell of smoke and unwashed wool. His meals are simple cornmeal mush, a thin stew of wild greens, or a piece of salted fish if the season has been kind. Water is hauled from a stream, its surface often cloudy with silt, and sanitation is a constant struggle, with waste piling in a midden heap that draws flies and vermin. Illness is a shadow that lingers, a fever or a cough that can sweep through a family, leaving empty spaces at the table. The settler's days are a cycle of survival, planting, harvesting, mending, always with the land's demands pressing close. Now shift your gaze to the home of a wealthy merchant or a colonial governor, perhaps in the heart of Virginia or Massachusetts. The house is larger, its walls lined with plaster or even imported paneling, its floors of polished wood rather than earth. The air inside carries the scent of beeswax candles and dried lavender, a faint counterpoint to the smoke that still seeps from the hearth. The elite have servants or indentured laborers, men and women whose hands bear the brunt of the hardest tasks, hauling water, scrubbing laundry, or tending livestock. Yet, even here, the realities of colonial life intrude. The water, though fetched by others, is drawn from the same uncertain streams. The privy, though better maintained, still carries the sharp odor of waste. And the threat of disease spares no one, rich or poor. The elite's table offers a stark contrast to the commoner's fare. Imagine a dining room where a linen cloth, imported at great cost, covers a sturdy oak table. The meal might include venison roasted with herbs, a pudding sweetened with molasses, or even a rare treat like wine shipped from England, its taste sharp and unfamiliar after months at sea. The plates are pewter or, for the wealthiest, imported Delft, their surfaces gleaming in the candlelight. Yet the food, though richer, is still shaped by the land. The venison comes from local forests, the herbs from a garden tended with care, and the bread, though made with finer flour, is baked in the same smoky hearths. Scarcity touches even the elite, and a failed harvest or a harsh winter can thin their stores as surely as it does the commoners. Clothing marks the divide. The common settler wears homespun wool or linen, the fabric coarse and patched, its color faded to a dull gray or brown. Washing is a rare chore, and the smell of sweat clings to the fibers. The elite, by contrast, wear garments of finer make silk, or fine wool dyed in deep blues or reds with lace at the cuffs for the wealthiest. These clothes are still washed with lye soap, the process no less harsh, but the task is often left to servants. Imagine a merchant's wife, her gown rustling as she moves through her home, the fabric catching the light. Yet, even her finery is not immune to the colony's filth. The hems of her skirts drag through muddy streets, and the damp air leaves her cloak heavy with moisture. Social life among the elite revolves around gatherings that the common settler rarely knows. Picture a meeting in a governor's home, the room warmed by a roaring fire, the air scented with tobacco and the faint sweetness of spiced cider. Men in waistcoats and women in embroidered bodices discuss trade, politics, or the latest news. From England, the conversation is measured, the voice is low, but the topics are weighty. Land disputes, alliances with indigenous peoples, or the ever-present threat of conflict with rival colonies. These gatherings are a luxury, a moment of connection, in a world where isolation is common. Yet they are not without their own tensions. A misplaced word or a slighted guest can ripple through the community. Where status is as fragile as the glass in the windows, the church, a cornerstone of colonial life, also reflects this divide. For the common settler, the meeting house is a place of hard benches and cold air, the sermons a steady drone that lulls as much as it instructs. The elite, though, often have private pews, cushioned with wool or even velvet, their names carved into the wood as a mark of status. The air here is still heavy with the scent of damp wool and candle wax, but the elite's presence is a reminder of their influence. They fund the church, donate land, or sponsor the minister, their generosity a public display of piety and power. Yet all kneel before the same uncertainties: a harsh winter, a failed crop, or a fever that spares no rank. The contrast between these lives is stark, but it is not absolute. The elite, for all their comforts, are bound to the same harsh world. Their homes, though grander, are still vulnerable to leaks and drafts. Their bodies, though better fed, are still prey to disease. The filth of the coloniate's muddy streets, its fouled streams, its ever-present waste touches everyone. A governor might step carefully to avoid a puddle, but his boots still carry the earth stain. A merchant's wife might burn lavender to mask the smell of the privy, but the odor lingers. The elite's wealth buys distance from the worst of the struggle, but it cannot erase it. This interplay of hardship and privilege defined the social fabric of colonial settlements. The common settler's life was one of labor and endurance, their days shaped by the land's unyielding demands. The elite, though cushioned by wealth, were not immune to the colony's challenges. Their lives, like those of their neighbors, were a delicate balance, a constant negotiation with a world that offered little mercy. As we draw this journey to a close, let's reflect on the broader tapestry of colonial life, where every thread common or elite wove together to create something enduring. Asterisk as we step back from the world of colonial America. Imagine yourself leaving the settlement behind, the faint glow of its hearths fading into the distance. The air grows lighter, the sense of wood smoke and damp earth giving way to the quiet comfort of your own space. Tonight, we've wandered through the rhythms of daily life, where settlers toiled against the land's challenges, their hands worn by labor, their homes heavy with the realities of survival. We followed the story of Anne Hutchinson, a woman whose courage shone through the constraints of her time. We've uncovered the traces left in the earth-broken pottery, rusted tools, the silent witnesses to a world of resilience. And we've seen the contrast between the commoner and the elite, their lives divided by wealth but united by the colony's unforgiving realities. This was a world of filth and struggle, where every task was a step toward survival, every day a testament to endurance. Yet within that hardship, there was purpose, a quiet determination to build, to endure, to leave a mark. As you rest now, consider the distance between that world and ours. The comforts you know, the warmth of your bed, the ease of clean water, the safety from disease were dreams to those settlers, luxuries hard-won by their labor. Let that thought settle gently, a reminder of the fragility and strength of human endeavor. The past is behind us, its stories told, its struggles softened. By time, close your eyes, if you haven't already, and let the rhythm of history carry you into sleep. Good night. The role of indigenous interactions, encounters in a shared land. Picture yourself at the edge of a colonial settlement, where the clearing gives way to a dense forest, its trees whispering softly in the breeze. The air carries the faint scent of pine and the distant temps of a river winding through the wilderness. It's the early 17th century, and the world around you is not solely the domain of the settlers who built their homes here. This land belongs to others, two indigenous peoples whose villages, trails, and knowledge have shaped it for generations. The interactions between these settlers and the native tribes are a quiet undercurrent in the rhythm of colonial life. A dance of trade, learning, and tension that leaves its mark on both. As you settle into this story, let the gentle ebb and flow of these encounters guide you. A soothing thread in the tapestry of a harsh world. The settlers' survival, often, depended on their indigenous neighbors whose knowledge of the land was as vital as the tools they carried from England. Imagine a morning in a settlement like Plymouth or Jamestown, where a settler steps cautiously along a forest path, a sack of trade goods slung over his shoulder. The path is narrow, worn smooth by countless footsteps, its edges fringed with wild grasses that brush against his legs. He's headed to a meeting place, perhaps a clearing where the air smells of crushed leaves and the faint smoke of a native fire. The indigenous people, perhaps the Wampanoag, Powhatan, or Narragansett, wait there. Their faces calm but watchful, their clothing of deerskin soft against the skin, adorned with beads that catch the light. The settler offers glass beads, iron, tools, or bolts of coarse cloth, their texture rough under his fingers. In return, he receives furs, baskets of corn, or dried fish, their surfaces slick with oil and smelling faintly of the sea. These moments of trade were not just transactions, but a bridge between worlds. The settlers learned from the indigenous peoples, watching how they planted corn in mounds, the soil enriched with fish to coax life from the stubborn earth. Picture a settler woman kneeling beside a native woman, their hands working together to press seeds into the dirt, the air warm with a scent of turned soil and blooming wildflowers. The native woman's voice is low, her words unfamiliar, but her gestures are clear patience, care, a rhythm honed by generations. The settler woman, her own hands calloused from grinding corn or scrubbing laundry, absorbs these lessons, her movements growing surer with each passing day. The corn, when it grows, is a vibrant green, its stalks swaying in the summer breeze, a testament to shared knowledge in a land that demands adaptation. Yet these interactions were not always peaceful. The land itself was a source of tension, its boundaries marked not by fences, but by custom and memory. Imagine a settler standing at the edge of his field, his hoe resting on his shoulder, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth after a rain. He looks out at the forest where indigenous hunters move silently. Their presence, a reminder that this land is shared and contested. Disputes over land or resources could flare into conflict, not always with weapons, but with words, misunderstandings, or broken promises. When violence did erupt, it left a shadow on both sides, a reminder of lives disrupted or lost. The settlers' records speak of raids or skirmishes, but the details are softened. Here no bloodstains this story, only the weight of consequence. A burned cabin, its timbers charred and crumbling, or a village abandoned, its hearths cold, tells of moments when trust faltered. The cultural exchange went beyond trade or conflict. The settlers adopted native practices, weaving them into the fabric of their lives. Imagine a colonial kitchen, its air thick with the smell of boiling corn and herbs gathered from the forest's edge. The recipe comes from an indigenous neighbor, a stew of beans and squash that fills the belly on cold nights. The settler stirs the pot with a wooden spoon, its handle worn smooth by use, and the steam carries a faint sweetness that mingles with the ever-present wood smoke. Clothing, too, bore the mark of this exchange. Some settlers wore moccasins, their leather soft and pliable. Learn from native craftsmen who knew how to work the land's resources. These shoes, quieter than the settlers' heavy boots, left lighter tracks on the forest paths. A small adaptation in a world of constant learning. The indigenous peoples, in turn, were changed by the settlers' presence. Iron tools, sharper and more durable than stone, found their way into native hands, easing the work of cutting wood or preparing hides. The air in a native village might carry the faint clink of metal against wood, a new sound in an ancient rhythm. Yet these tools came at a cost. Disease carried unknowingly by the settlers swept through native communities, leaving grief in its wake. The loss was profound, a quiet devastation that altered the balance of the land. No vivid horrors linger here, only the acknowledgement of lives dimmed too soon, of villages grown quieter, their fires burning low. These interactions shape the daily rhythm of colonial life, a rhythm both cooperative and strained. The settler survival hinged on the knowledge and resources of their indigenous neighbors. Yet their presence disrupted ancient ways. Picture a winter evening, the settlement blanketed in snow, the air sharp with cold. A settler sits by his hearth, the fire crackling softly, and thinks of the corn stored in his cellar, a gift of native wisdom. Outside, the forest stretches vast and silent, its paths leading to villages where other fires burn, other lives unfold. This shared land, with its beauty and its burdens, bound settler and native together, their stories intertwined in the earth's deep memory as we leave these encounters behind. Let's turn to another rhythm of colonial life, the cycle of seasons, which dictated every task, every hope, and every struggle in this unforgiving world. The cycle of seasons, nature's rhythm in colonial life. Imagine yourself standing in a colonial settlement, perhaps along the Chesapeake Bay or the rocky coast of New England, where the air shifts with the turning of the seasons. It's early morning, and the sky is a pale gray, tinged with the soft light of dawn. The scent of damp earth and pine lingers, mingling with the faint saltiness of a nearby river. In this world, the seasons are not just a backdrop, but a relentless force, dictating every task, every hope, and every hardship. From the promise of spring planting to the bounty of autumn harvests and the quiet endurance of winter, the cycle of seasons shape the rhythm of life in colonial America. As you settle into this story, let the gentle cadence of the years turning carry you. A soothing thread in the fabric of a challenging existence. Spring arrives with a tentative warmth, the ground softening underfoot as the last patches of snow melt into muddy pools. Picture a settler stepping out of his cabin, his boots sinking slightly into the earth, the air fresh with the scent of budding leaves and wet grass. The fields, cleared with back-breaking effort over years, are ready for planting, and the work begins at once. Corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters learned from indigenous neighbors, are sown in small mounds. The soil cool and crumbly under the settler's fingers. The hoe, its wooden handle worn smooth, bites into the earth, each stroke a prayer for a good harvest. The stream nearby, swollen with spring rains, carries a faint murkiness, and fetching water is a daily trek. The bucket's heavy and the path slick with mud. The air hums with the buzz of insects, a reminder that pests, too, awaken with the season. Threatening the fragile crops, the filth of spring is inescapable. The melting snow reveals the winter's accumulated waste-midden heaps of food scraps and broken tools, their surfaces slick with decay and buzzing with flies. The privy, neglected during the cold months, is a source of stench, its pit overflowing, until someone braves the task of digging a new one. Imagine a settler woman scrubbing laundry by the stream, her hands red from the cold water and the bite of lye soap, the clothes stiff with dirt from weeks of wear. The settlement itself seems to stir, its paths churned into mud by footsteps and cartwheels, each step a reminder of the land's unyielding presence. Yet spring also brings hope, the first green shoots in the fields, the distant song of birds returning, the faint sweetness of wildflowers blooming at the forest's edge. Summer deepens the heat, the air thick with humidity and the drone of cicadas. The fields demand constant attention as weeds creep in and the sun bakes the soil to a hard crust. Picture a settler tending his crops, his shirt damp with sweat, the scent of earth and green stalks clinging to his skin. The work is relentless hoeing, watering, guarding against deer or insects that nibble at the growing plants. The stream, now lower, is still a lifeline. But its water is warm and sometimes cloudy, requiring boiling to fend off illness. Meals are simple but fresh, corn roasted over the fire, its kernels sweet and tender. Beans stewed with wild onions, their flavor sharp and earthy. The hearth, though, is a mixed blessing, its heat stifling in the summer air, the smoke curling upward to stain the ceiling and cling to hair and clothes. The settlement's filth grows more oppressive in summer. The midden heaps swell with vegetable peels and fish bones, their odor sharp in the humid air. Flies are a constant nuisance, buzzing around the privy or settling on uncovered food. Bathing is a rare luxury, the stream too warm to be refreshing. And most settlers make do with a damp cloth, the water gray from use. Disease, too, thrives in the heat, with fevers spreading through close-knit families. Imagine a settler brewing a tea of yarrow or chamomile. The herb's bitter scent rising from a steaming pot, a fragile defense against illness. The losses, when they come, are quiet but heavy. A child's laughter stilled, or a neighbor's hearth grown cold. Yet life presses on, the rhythm of weeding and harvesting unbroken. The field's a testament to the settler's endurance. Autumn brings a fleeting reprieve, the air cooling and the leaves turning to shades of amber and crimson. The harvest is the year's pinnacle, a time of backbreaking work but also cautious celebration. Picture a settler family in the fields, their hands stained with the juice of squash or the dust of corn husks. The air rich with the scent of ripe crops and fallen leaves. The corn is gathered into rough baskets, its stalks rustling softly, while beans and pumpkins are piled in the shade of a barn. The harvest is never certain. Early frosts or hungry pests can thin the yields, but a good season means survival. Through the winter, the community comes together, neighbors sharing the labor of threshing grain or salting meat. Their voices low and steady, the air filled with the rhythmic thud of tools. The filth of autumn is subtler but ever present. The fields, stripped bare, are littered with broken stalks and clumps of earth, the ground muddy from frequent rains. The midden heaps grow with the refuse of the harvest corncob's pumpkin rinds, the bones of a slaughtered pig, the privies. Stench lingers, worsened by the damp, and cleaning it is a task few relish. Yet the season also brings moments of beauty, the crisp scent of apples gathered from a wild orchard, the soft glow of a lantern as families work late into the evening, preserving food for the months ahead. The air carries a chill now, a reminder that winter looms and the settler's thoughts turn to preparation. To survival, winter seals the settlement in a quiet grip, the air sharp with cold and the scent of snow. The fields lie fallow, blanketed in white, and the paths grow silent, save for the crunch of footsteps. Imagine a settler inside his cabin, the walls patched with clay to keep out the wind, the hearth burning low to conserve precious firewood. The air inside is smoky, the scent of burning pine mingling with the musty odor of wool blankets and stored grain. Meals are meager salted meat, dried beans, or a thin porridge of cornmeal, its texture gritty but warming. Water, fetched from a frozen stream or melted snow, is cold enough to numb the hands, and the bucket's handle bites into the skin. The privy, now a frozen pit, is a trial to use, its surface slick with ice. The winter's hardships are stark. Hunger is a constant shadow, the stores dwindling as the months drag on. Disease, too, finds easy prey in the cold, with coughs and fevers spreading through cramped homes. The settlers' remedies, herbal teas, poultices of mustard or onion are brewed with care. Their scents sharp in the confined air, but their power is limited. The losses, when they come, are borne quietly, a family gathering closer around the fire, the silence heavy with grief. Yet winter also brings moments of stillness, the soft creak of a rocking chair, the murmur of a story told to children, the faint glow of a candle casting shadows on the wall. The season is a test of endurance, a time when the rhythm of survival slows but never stops. The cycle of seasons was the heartbeat of colonial life, each one bringing its own labors, its own filth, its own fragile hopes. The settlers moved with the land, their lives shaped by its rhythms, their resilience a quiet defiance against its challenges. As we leave the turning of the year behind, let's turn to the tools and craftsmanship that sustained these settlements. The objects and skills that carved order from the wilderness. Tools and craftsmanship shaping survival with skill and ingenuity. Imagine yourself standing in the heart of a colonial settlement where the air hums with the steady rhythm of work. It's a crisp morning, and the scent of freshly split wood mingles with the faint temps of iron heated in a forge. Around you, the sounds of labor fill the silence, the sharp clink of a hammer on metal, the soft rasp of a saw cutting through timber, the low creak of a spinning wheel turning wool into thread. In this world, tools and craftsmanship are the lifeblood of survival, transforming the raw materials of the land into the necessities of life. Every object, from a wooden plow to a clay pot, bears the mark of human hands, worn and calloused from years of effort. As you settle into this story, let the quiet rhythm of creation guide you. A soothing echo of a time when skill and ingenuity carved order from the wilderness. The tools of the colonial settler were simple but vital, each one a testament to the struggle against an unforgiving land. Picture a farmer in his field, gripping a wooden plow, its handle smoothed by years of use. Its iron blade pitted with rust, but sharp enough to break the hard soil. The plow is heavy, its weight pulling at his shoulders as he guides it through the earth, the air thick with the scent of turned dirt and crushed grass. This tool, often forged by a local blacksmith or brought from England at great cost, is a lifeline, turning rocky fields into furrows for planting corn or wheat. The work is slow, the ground resisting each stroke, and the farmer's hands blister where the wood rubs against his skin. Yet each furrow is a small victory, a step toward the harvest that will sustain his family in the blacksmith's forge. The air is alive with heat and the sharp smell of burning charcoal. Imagine standing just outside where the glow of the fire casts flickering shadows on the rough wooden walls. The blacksmith, his apron stained with soot, hammers a piece of iron into shape, each strike sending a spark into the air. The metal, heated to a dull red, yields slowly, becoming a hoe, a nail, or a hinge for a settler's door. The tools he creates are not ornate, but sturdy, designed for function rather than beauty. The forge's heat is stifling, the air heavy, with the metallic tang of molten iron, and the blacksmith's hands are scarred from years of handling hot metal. Yet his craft is essential, binding the community together with the tools that build homes, clear fields, and mend what breaks. The carpenter's work is equally vital, shaping the raw timber of the forest into the structures of daily life. Picture a carpenter at his workbench, the air filled with the sweet, resinous scent of pine shavings curling under his plane. His tool is a saw, a chisel, an auger are simple, their wooden handles worn smooth by use, their blades honed to a fine edge. He crafts a chair, its legs sturdy but unpolished, or a chest to store grain, its surface rough but sealed tight against pests. The work is precise, each cut measured by eye, the wood's grain guiding his hand. Sawdust clings to his clothes, its texture soft but gritty, and the sound of his tool's rhythmic scrape and thud blends with the settlement's constant hum. The carpenter's creations, from beams to barrels, are the bones of the colony, holding it upright against the weight of time. Women, too, were artisans in their own right, their tools often overlooked, but no less critical. Imagine a woman seated, by a spinning wheel in a dimly lit cabin, the air heavy with the musty smell of wool and the faint smoke of the hearth. The wheel hums softly, its treadle creaking as her foot presses a steady rhythm, transforming raw wool into thread. Her hands, rough from washing and tending the fire, guide the fibers with practiced ease, the thread growing longer with each turn. The wool, flecked with bits of straw, carries the faint odor of the sheep it came from, a reminder of the labor of shearing and cleaning. From this thread, she weaves cloth on a loom, its wooden frame creaking under the weight of her work. The fabric, coarse but durable, becomes a shirt, a blanket, or a sack. Each stitch a quiet act of creation in a world where nothing is wasted. Pottery, too, was a craft that sustained the settlement, its products humble but indispensable. Picture a potter at his wheel, his hands slick with clay, the air cool and damp with the smell of wet earth. The wheel turns slowly, its surface worn smooth by countless pots, as he shapes a jug or a bowl, the clay yielding under his fingers. The finished pieces, fired in a kiln that glows with a dull heat, are simple, their surfaces glazed with a mottled green or brown. These vessels hold water, store grain, or cook meals over the fire, their weight reassuring in the hands of a settler. The potter's yard littered with broken shards and clumps of dried clay. Smells of earth and ash, a testament to the trial and error of his craft. Each pot, though plain, is a small triumph, a vessel for survival in a world of scarcity. The filth of colonial life touched even these acts of creation. Tools, though carefully maintained, were often caked with dirt or rust, their handles stained with sweat and soil. The blacksmith's forge was a place of soot and grime, the air thick with the acrid smell of burning coal. The carpenter's workbench was dusted with sawdust that clung to everything, mixing with the mud tracked in from outside. The potter's clay, dug from nearby riverbanks, was gritty with silt, and the water used to shape it was often cloudy, drawn from the same uncertain streams that served the settlement. Even the spinning wheel, a symbol of domestic craft, was surrounded by the realities of a smoky, cramped cabin, where the air carried the scent of unwashed wool and the faint tank of lye from nearby laundry. Yet these tools and crafts were more than objects. They were the settlers' defiance against the land's challenges. A plow meant food, a hammer meant shelter, a spindle meant warmth. Each crafted item, whether a nail or a blanket, bore the marks of human effort, of hands that worked through exhaustion and uncertainty. The settlement's survival rested on these skills, passed down through generations or learned through necessity. Imagine a quiet evening, the air cool and the fire low. As a settler sharpens his axe, the blade scraping softly against a whetstone. The sound is steady, almost hypnotic, a reminder that in this harsh world, craftsmanship was a rhythm of hope, a way to shape the future from the raw materials of the present. As we leave the world of tools and craftsmanship behind, we carry with us the image of a settlement sustained by skill and labor, its people bound to the land and to each other. Their lives, marked by filth and struggle, were also marked by creation, by the quiet beauty of objects made to endure. Let this rhythm linger, a gentle echo of a time long past, as you drift toward rest. The role of religion and ritual faith in a harsh world. Imagine yourself standing in a colonial settlement, perhaps in the early morning light, where the air is cool and carries the faint scent of dew-soaked grass and smoldering hearths. The settlement is quiet, save for the soft tolling of a bell from the meeting house, its wooden frame weathered but sturdy at the heart of the community. In this world, religion is not just a belief, but a rhythm, a steady pulse that guides the settlers through the hardships of their days. The meeting house, with its hard benches and unglazed windows, is a sanctuary of sorts, a place where the filth and toil of colonial life are set aside, if only for a moment, in pursuit of something greater. As you settle into this story, let the gentle cadence of faith and ritual carry you. A soothing thread woven into the fabric of a challenging existence. Religion in colonial America. Particularly in Puritan-heavy regions like Massachusetts or Virginia's Anglican communities was the cornerstone of daily life. Picture a settler family preparing for the Sabbath. Their movements deliberate despite the ever-present demands of survival. The morning begins with the familiar tasks. A woman stirs a pot of cornmeal mush over the fire, the air thick with the smoky scent of burning pine. While her husband sharpens a tool, its blade scraping softly against a whetstone. But today, the rhythm shifts. The family dons their best clothes, still coarse linen or wool, patched but carefully cleaned, the fabric stiff from lye soap and cold water. The air in their cabin is heavy with the musty smell of stored garments, a faint contrast to the damp earthiness that clings to their everyday wear. The journey to the meeting house is a ritual in itself. Imagine the settlers walking along a muddy path, their shoes sinking slightly into the soft ground, the air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves or the sharp tang of frost, depending on the season. The path winds through the settlement, past homes where smoke curls from chimneys and the faint clatter of morning chores echoes. The meeting house stands modest but central, its walls of rough-hewn timber or clapboard weathered by rain and wind. Inside, the air is cool and carries the faint scent of candle wax and damp wool, the benches worn smooth by years of use. Settlers file in, their faces solemn, their voices hushed as they take their places, the elite in private pews marked with their names. The common folk crowded together on harder seats. The sermon, delivered by a minister in a black coat, is a marathon of words, its cadence steady and unhurried, stretching for hours. Picture the minister's voice, low and resonant, filling the space as he speaks of providence, sin, and the need for vigilance in a world of trials. The air grows heavy with the collective breath of the congregation, the scent of unwashed bodies, mingling with the faint sweetness of herbs tucked into pockets to mask the odor. For the settlers, this is both duty and respite, a moment to sit still, to let the mind wander or rest. The minister's words a soothing drone that lulls as much as it instructs. Children fidget, their small shoes scuffing against the wooden floor, while adults sit upright, their hands folded, their thoughts drifting between scripture and the tasks awaiting them. Outside, religion shaped more than just the Sabbath. It was woven into the daily rhythm of life, a constant presence in a world where uncertainty loomed large. Imagine a settler pausing at midday, his hands resting on the handle of a hoe, the air warm with the scent of earth and growing crops. He murmurs a prayer, a quiet plea for rain or a good harvest, the words as familiar as the weight of the tool. In his hands, at home, a woman kneels by her hearth, her fingers tracing the worn pages of a family Bible, its leather cover soft from years of use. The air is thick with the smell of smoke and boiling herbs, but her focus is on the words, a source of comfort amid the toil of cooking, mending, and tending to children. These moments of faith, however brief, were anchors grounding the settlers. In a world where hunger, disease, and loss were ever present, communal rituals extended beyond the meeting house, binding the settlement together. Picture a harvest festival, a rare moment of celebration after months of labor. The air is crisp with autumn, the scent of roasted corn and apples mingling with the smoke of a communal fire. Tables set up in a clearing are laden with simple, fair bread baked from coarse flour, its crust hard but fragrant, venison stew, its broth thickened with beans, and cider, its tang sharp on the tongue. The settlers gather, their clothes patched but clean, their voices rising in a hymn that carries over the fields. The filth of daily life is still there, the muddy ground underfoot. The faint odor of the nearby midden heap, but for a moment it fades, replaced by the warmth of shared purpose. These gatherings, though modest, were a reminder of community, a bulwark against the isolation of the frontier. Yet religion could also divide. In some settlements, disagreements over doctrine or practice sparked tensions, echoing the story of Anne Hutchinson we explored earlier. Imagine a meeting house where whispers ripple through the congregation, the air heavy with the scent of damp wool and unspoken grudges. A family accused of straying from orthodoxy might sit apart, their faces set, the weight of judgment as real as the cold seeping through the walls. Banishment, though rare, was a heavy consequence, sending families into the wilderness where survival was even harder. These moments were not marked by violence, but by a quiet severing, a community closing ranks to preserve its fragile order. The loss was felt deeply, a thread pulled loose from the settlement's fabric. But life moved on, the rhythm of faith and labor unbroken. The filth of colonial life touched even these sacred spaces. The meeting house, though a place of reverence, was not immune to the realities of the settlement. Its floors were often earthen, tracking in mud with every step, and its air was heavy with the smells of a crowded congregation. The minister's own home, though slightly better appointed, was still a place of smoke and damp, its hearth burning constantly to fend off the cold. Disease, too, respected no sanctity, spreading through the pews as easily as through a family's cabin. Yet faith offered a lens through which to view these hardships, a way to find meaning in the struggle. A fever was a trial, a failed crop, a test, and the settlers' prayers were a quiet defiance. A plea for strength in a world that offered little mercy, as we leave the world of religion and ritual behind. We carry the image of a settlement bound by faith, its people gathered in the flickering light of a meeting house or pausing in their fields to whisper a prayer. Their lives, marked by the constant presence of filth and toil, were also shaped by these moments of connection, where the rhythm of belief offered solace and structure. Let this image linger, a gentle reminder of the human spirit's resilience. As you drift deeper into the past or toward the quiet of sleep, the burden of travel and communication connecting a scattered world. Imagine yourself standing on a narrow path winding through a colonial settlement, where the earth is soft underfoot, churned into mud by recent rains. The air carries the scent of damp leaves and the faint, distant temps of a river hidden beyond the trees. It's the 17th century, and the world around you feels vast, its horizons stretching far beyond the cluster of cabins and fields that make up your home. In this time, travel and communication are not mere conveniences, but arduous tasks. Each journey a test of endurance, each message a fragile thread linking isolated lives. The settler's world is one of distance and delay, where paths, rivers, and rare letters shape the rhythm of connection. As you settle into this story, let the slow, deliberate pace of their efforts guide you, a soothing echo of a time when every step and every word carried weight. Travel in Colonial America is a labor shaped by the land itself. Picture a settler preparing to leave his village, perhaps to trade goods in a neighboring settlement or to attend a court session miles away. His pack is heavy with necessities: dried corn, a flint for starting fires, a woolen blanket rolled tight against the damp. His shoes crafted from thick leather or perhaps moccasins learned from indigenous neighbors are already worn, their soles caked with the ever-present mud. The path he follows is little more than a trail, its surface uneven with roots and stones, its edges fringed with wild grasses that brush against his legs. The air smells of earth and pine, and the distant call of a bird breaks the silence, a reminder of the wilderness that surrounds him. The journey is slow, each step measured to conserve strength. Rivers and streams, swollen in spring or sluggish in summer, are both lifelines and barriers. Imagine the settler reaching a riverbank, its water cloudy with silt, its current strong enough to tug at his legs. A crude ferry, little more than a raft of lashed logs, waits to carry him across, its wood slick with moss and water. The ferryman's pole dips rhythmically into the river, the splash soft but steady, and the air carries the cool, damp scent of the water mingled with the faint musk of decaying leaves along the shore. If no ferry is available, the settler wades across, the cold biting at his skin, his clothes heavy and dripping as he emerges on the other side. These crossings are a constant in colonial travel, each one a gamble against the elements and the land's unpredictability. The filth of travel is inescapable. The paths often shared with livestock are littered with mud and manure, their surfaces treacherous after rain. The settler's clothes, already patched and stiff with sweat, collect. The grime of the journey, the hems caked with dirt that dries into a gritty crust. Inns or taverns, if he's lucky enough to find one, offer little respite. Picture a roadside tavern, its walls of rough timber, its air thick with the smell of stale beer and smoky hearths. The bedding, if provided, is coarse and rarely washed, its fibers carrying the faint odor of previous travelers. Meals are simple perhaps, a bowl of stew, its broth thin but warm, served in a pewter bowl that feels heavy in the hand. The settler eats quickly, aware that rest is fleeting. And the road waits communication, like travel, is a challenge that tests the settler's resilience. Letters are rare, their delivery uncertain, carried by travelers or ship captains willing to take on the task. Imagine a woman in her cabin, seated by a flickering candle, its wax dripping slowly onto the table. She writes a letter to family in England or another colony, her quill scratching softly against rough paper, the ink smelling faintly of iron and oak gall. The words are measured, recounting the year's harvest, a child's illness, or the hope of reunion, but the act of writing is laborious, her fingers cramped from the effort. The letter, once finished, is sealed with a dab of wax, its surface warm and smooth under her thumb. But its journey is uncertain. It might wait weeks or months for a passing ship. Many letters never arrive, lost to storms or the chaos of the frontier. The isolation of colonial life makes these connections all the more precious. Picture a settler receiving a rare letter delivered by a weary traveler whose cloak is damp with rain. The paper is worn, its edges softened by the journey, but the words carry the faint echo of another world. The settler reads by the firelight, the air heavy with the scent of burning pine and the musty smell of stored grain. The letter speaks of news births, deaths, or events across the ocean, but it also carries absence, a reminder of the vast distance between sender and reader. For a moment, the settler's world feels less alone. The words of fragile bridge across the miles. Indigenous paths and knowledge often shape the settler's travel, just as they shaped their survival. The trails they followed were often native routes, worn by generations of footsteps, winding efficiently through forests and along rivers. Imagine a settler pausing at a crossroads, the air cool with the shade of towering oaks, and consulting a crude map or a memory of directions shared by an indigenous guide. The native peoples, with their intimate knowledge of the land, knew where rivers could be forded or where paths avoided swamps. Their guidance, sometimes offered through trade or alliance, was a lifeline, though tensions could make such exchanges fraught. The settler moves on, his steps lighter for the knowledge. The path stretching ahead like a promise of connection. The burdens of travel and communication were not just physical, but emotional. A constant reminder of the settler's isolation. A journey could take days or weeks, each one marked by the weight of uncertainty. Would the traveler return? Would the letter arrive? Would the goods reach their destination? Yet these efforts were essential, binding settlements to each other and to the wider world. Imagine a quiet evening, the settlement bathed in the soft glow of twilight, the air carrying the scent of cooling earth and distant wood smoke. A traveler returns, his pack lighter but his face lined with fatigue, and the community gathers, eager for news. The rhythm of their lives, labor, faith, survival pauses briefly, lifted by the fragile thread of connection as we leave the world. Of travel and communication behind, we carry the image of a settler on a muddy path, his steps steady despite the weight of his load, or a letter held close by the firelight, its words a whisper from afar. Their world, marked by filth and distance, was also one of persistence, where every journey and every message was a quiet act of defiance against isolation. Let this rhythm linger, a gentle reminder of the human need to connect. As you drift deeper into the past or toward the quiet of sleep, the role of children in family life growing up in a colonial world. Imagine yourself standing in the doorway of a colonial cabin, where the air is warm with the scent of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of cornmeal simmering over the fire. It's early evening and the settlement is settling into a quiet rhythm, the distant clatter of tools fading as the day's work winds down. Inside the cabin, a family gathers, a mother mending a torn shirt, her needle glinting in the firelight. A father sharpening a knife, its blade scraping softly against a whetstone. And children, their faces smudged with dirt, playing quietly with a wooden toy or listening to a story. In this world, children and family life are the heart of the settlement. Their presence, a fragile hope amidst the hardships of colonial existence. As you settle into this story, let the gentle hum of family life carry you. It's a soothing thread in a tapestry woven with toil and resilience. Children in colonial settlements were not merely dependents, but vital contributors to the family survival. Picture a young boy, no older than 7, trudging across a muddy yard, his small hands gripping a wooden bucket heavy with water from the stream. The air is cool, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and the faint temps of the nearby privy, its odor a constant in the settlement's daily life. His shoes, patched and worn, sink into the mud, and the bucket's handle bites into his palms, but he presses on, knowing the water is needed for cooking or washing. His sister, perhaps a year older, kneels in the garden, her fingers pulling. Weeds from the stubborn soil, the scent of crushed herbs clinging to her hands. These tasks, though small, are essential, each one a thread in the family's effort to endure. The home itself is a cramped, smoky space, its earthen floor cool underfoot and its walls patched with clay to keep out the wind. Imagine a mother stirring a pot of stew, the broth thin but fragrant with wild onions and dried fish, while her children cluster nearby, their voices soft as they share a game or a tale. The air is heavy with the smell of smoke and the musty odor of wool blankets piled on a straw mattress where the family sleeps. Privacy is scarce, the single room serving as kitchen, bedroom, and workshop, its corners cluttered with tools, baskets, and sacks of grain. The filth of daily life is ever present, the floor tracks mud. The hearth's ash scatters with every draft, and the faint stench of waste lingers from the midden heap outside. Yet within these walls, the family carves out moments of warmth. Their closeness, a shield against the land's relentless demands. Education for children was a luxury, often squeezed between chores. Picture a winter evening, the cabin lit by a single candle, its wax dripping slowly onto a rough table. A child, perhaps 10, sits with a horned book, a wooden paddle with a printed alphabet or scripturite surface worn from handling. The mother, her hands rough from spinning wool, guides the child's finger over the letters, her voice low and patient as she teaches him to read. The air smells of tallow and the faint sweetness of dried apples stored nearby, a rare treat saved for special moments. Formal schooling was rare, especially in smaller settlements, but some families shared a tutor or relied on the church, where the minister might teach basic reading or ciphering. The meeting house, its air heavy with the scent of damp wool, and candle wax doubled as a classroom, Its bench is hard, but offering a brief respite from labor. Play, though fleeting, was a vital part of childhood. Imagine a group of children in a clearing, their laughter cutting through the settlement's hum of work. They chase a leather ball, stitched tight and slightly lopsided, or play a game of tag, their feet kicking up dust or mud depending on the season. The air carries the scent of grass and the distant smoke of a neighbor's fire. And their clothes, simple shifts or breeches, patched and faded, are streaked with dirt from rolling on the ground. Toys were simple: a carved wooden horse, its edges smoothed by small hands; a doll made of corn husks, its texture crinkly and dry; or a hoop rolled with a stick, its clatter echoing along a path. These moments of joy were brief, overshadowed by the need to fetch firewood, tend livestock, or mind younger siblings, but they were a spark of light in the daily grind. The challenges of raising a family were immense, shaped by the colony's harsh realities. Food was often scarce, especially in the early years or during a poor harvest. Picture a mother portioning out a meager supper, her hands careful as she divides a small loaf of cornbread, its texture coarse but warm. The children eat quietly, their hunger a constant undercurrent, the air heavy with the scent of the hearth and the faint sourness of stored grain. Malnutrition weakened young bodies, making them vulnerable to the diseases that swept through settlements. Fevers, dysentery, or smallpox could claim a child in days, leaving a family's hearth quieter, their grief borne in silence. The remedies: herbal teas brewed from willow bark or yarrow, their scent bitter in the air-furred little defense. And the loss was a weight that lingered, unspoken but ever present. Family life was also a web of interdependence, each member's role vital to the whole. Imagine a father returning from the fields, his hands stained with soil, his face lined with fatigue. He carves a wooden spoon for his youngest, the shavings curling softly to the floor, their scent sweet and resinous. His wife, meanwhile, sews a patch onto a child's shirt, the needle's rhythm steady as the fire crackles nearby. The older children help with smaller tasks, minding the fire, feeding chickens, or carrying messages to neighbors. The settlement itself is an extension of this family, with communal tasks like barn raising or harvesting binding households together. Picture a group of families working side by side, their voices low as they stack hay, the air rich with the scent of dried grass and sweat. Their shared labor a testament to survival. The filth of colonial life touched even the youngest. Children's clothes, like their parents, were washed infrequently, the lye soap harsh on their skin, the water cold and cloudy from the stream. The privy, a constant source of stench, was a daunting place for a child, its pit dark and buzzing with flies. Bathing was rare, a quick scrub with a cloth, or, in summer, a dip in the stream, the water chilly and flecked with silt. Yet children adapted, their resilience mirroring their parents'. They learned to navigate the settlement's muddy paths, to ignore the smells of waste and smoke, to find joy in the smallest moments. So a story by the fire, a game in the dusk, a mother's quiet song as the day faded, as we leave the world of children and family life behind. We carry the image of a cabin filled with the soft sounds of a family at work and rest, their lives bound by love and necessity. Their world, marked by filth and scarcity, was also one of hope, where each child's labor, each shared meal, was a step toward a future carved from the wilderness. Let this rhythm linger, a gentle reminder of the strength found in togetherness. As you drift deeper into the past or toward the quiet of sleep, the struggle for health and medicine, healing in a harsh world. Imagine yourself inside a colonial cabin, where the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and the faint, bitter aroma of herbs simmering in a pot over the fire. It's a quiet evening, the settlement hushed under a blanket of twilight. The distant creak of a neighbor's door, the the only sound breaking the stillness. Inside, a family tends to one of their own, a child, perhaps lying on a straw mattress. Her face flushed with fever. The hearth casts a soft glow, its light flickering on the rough walls. And the mother's hands move with careful purpose, stirring a tea brewed from willow bark or yarrow. In this world, health is a fragile balance, and illness is a constant shadow. Its presence felt in every home, every season. As you settle into this story, let the gentle rhythm of care and survival guide you. A soothing thread in a tapestry woven with hardship and hope. In colonial America, medicine was a patchwork of tradition, necessity, and borrowed knowledge shaped by the land's relentless challenges. Picture a settler woman, her hands rough from years of labor, standing by her hearth as she prepares a remedy. The pot before her steams, its contents a mix of dried herbs gathered from the forest's edge, chamomile for calming, mint for soothing, or elderberry for fever. The air carries the sharp, earthy scent of the brew, mingling with the ever-present smoke that clings to her clothes and hair. Her knowledge comes from memory, passed down from her mother or learned from indigenous neighbors whose understanding of the land's plants was a lifeline. The tea, poured into a chipped clay cup, is bitter but warm, a small defense against the illness that threatens her family. The filth of colonial life was a breeding ground for disease. Water, drawn from streams or wells, was often cloudy with silt or fouled by waste, its surface shimmering with the faint sheen of contamination. Imagine a settler hauling a bucket from the stream, its wooden staves slick with damp, the water sloshing as he trudges back to his cabin. Boiling the water was a habit born of necessity, but not all knew its importance, and illness spread easily in the close quarters of a settlement. Privies, dug near homes, were sources of stench and sickness, their pits buzzing with flies in summer or frozen in winter, making sanitation a constant struggle. Midden heaps, piled with food scraps and broken pottery, attracted vermin, their odor sharp in the humid air, adding to the ever-present risk of infection. Disease was a relentless foe, its impact felt in every season. Fevers, dysentery, and smallpox swept through settlements, leaving families diminished and communities shaken. Picture a father sitting by his child's side, the air heavy with the sour smell of illness and the faint glow of a candle casting shadows on the wall. The child's breathing is shallow, her skin hot to the touch, and the father's hands are steady as he applies a poultice of mustard or onion, its pungent scent cutting through the cabin's smoky air. These remedies, though earnestly applied, were often powerless against the diseases that plagued the colonies. The loss of a life, when it came, was a quiet sorrow marked by a simple grave in a clearing, the earth soft and damp underfoot, the air carrying the faint scent of pine from nearby trees. Medical knowledge was limited, a mix of European traditions and local improvisation. Imagine a healer, perhaps, a woman known for her skill, or a man who doubled as the settlement's barber visiting a sick household. His tools are simple: a leather bag holding a few iron instruments, a mortar for grinding herbs, and a worn book of remedies, its pages yellowed and smudged. The air in the cabin is thick with the smell of illness and the faint sweetness of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. He might bleed a patient, a practiced thought to balance the body's humors. Using a small knife to make a careful cut, the blood caught in a pewter bowl. The process is calm, methodical, the settler's face pale but trusting, though the relief is uncertain. Other treatments, herbal teas, poultices, or compresses rely on the land's offerings. Their preparation, a ritual of hope in a world where cures were scarce. Indigenous knowledge played a vital role in colonial medicine, as it did in other aspects of survival. Picture a settler woman learning from a native healer, their hands working together to crush sassafras root or strip bark from a willow tree. The air is cool, scented with the resinous temps of the forest, and the native woman's gestures are precise, her knowledge deep with the wisdom of generations. The settler listens carefully, her apron stained with earth, as she learns to brew a tea that soothes pain or a salve that cools a burn. These exchanges, often born of trade or necessity, were a quiet bridge between cultures, though not without tension. The settlers' diseases carried across the ocean brought devastation to native communities, a shadow that hung over every interaction. Its impact felt in the silence of villages grown smaller. Midwives were the unsung heroes of colonial health, their work a blend of skill and compassion. Imagine a midwife entering a cabin at dusk, her cloak damp from a rainy journey, her hands steady as she carries a basket of supplies, herbs, cloths, a small vial of oil. The air inside is warm, heavy with the scent of sweat and the faint metallic tang of birth. She moves with quiet confidence, her voice low as she soothes the mother, her hands guiding the process with care. The birth, when it comes, is a moment of fragile triumph, the newborn's cry cutting through the cabin's stillness. But the risks are ever-present. Illness could claim mother or child, and the midwife's remedies, brewed from herbs or roots, were all that stood against the threat. Her presence, though, was a comfort. Her knowledge a light in the darkness of uncertainty. The struggle for health was a constant in colonial life, its challenges woven into the rhythm of survival. Every remedy brewed, every poultice applied, was an act of defiance against a world where illness was as common as the mud underfoot. Picture a family gathered around their hearth, the fire low but steady, the air thick with the scent of herbs and hope. Their hands, worn from labor, hold each other close, their resilience a quiet strength against the land's hardships. As we leave this world of healing and struggle behind, let the gentle rhythm of their care linger, a soothing reminder of the human will to endure. As you drift deeper into the past or toward the quiet of sleep, the marketplace and trade commerce in a world of scarcity, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a colonial settlement, where a dirt path widens into a small clearing, the heart of what passes for a marketplace. It's a brisk morning, and the air carries the scent of damp earth, mingled with the faint sweetness of tobacco leaves drying in a nearby shed and the sharp tang of fish from a river not far away. The clearing hums with quiet activity. Settlers barter goods, their voices low but steady, while a cart creaks under the weight of grain sacks, its wheels sinking into the muddy ground. In this world, trade is the lifeblood of the community, a delicate dance of need and resourcefulness that binds families, neighbors, and even distant peoples together. As you settle into this story, let the gentle rhythm of exchange guide you, a soothing thread in a tapestry woven with toil and endurance. The marketplace in a colonial settlement was not a grand affair, but a modest gathering, often little more than a cluster of makeshift stalls or blankets spread on the ground. Picture a settler woman standing behind a rough wooden table, her hands arranging baskets of corn, their husks rustling softly, or a small pile of wool, its fibers flecked with bits of straw. The air around her is thick with the sense of the settlement smoke from a nearby hearth, the earthy smell of vegetables freshly pulled from the soil, and the faint odor of the midden heap just beyond the clearing. Her goods are simple but precious. A few eggs, their shells speckled and cool to the touch. A bundle of dried herbs, their fragrance sharp and green. Or a pair of knitted socks, their wool coarse but warm. In exchange, she seeks what her family lacks: a knife, a bolt of cloth, or perhaps a measure of salt. Its grains gritty between her fingers. Barter was the currency of the colonies, where coin was scarce and trust was a fragile bond. Imagine a farmer offering a sack of tobacco, its leaves cured to a rich brown, their scent earthy and slightly sweet, in trade for a blacksmith's nails, their iron cool and heavy in his palm. The negotiation is quiet, each party weighing the value of their goods, their voices blending with the soft murmur of the crowd. The marketplace is a web of interdependence, where a weaver's cloth becomes a farmer's blanket, a fisherman's catch feeds a carpenter's family, and a potter's jug holds water for a neighbor's table. The air carries the clink of tools, the rustle of goods changing hands, and the occasional laughter of children darting between the stalls. Their feet kicking up dust or mud, depending on the season, trade extended beyond the settlement, reaching indigenous communities whose goods and knowledge were vital to survival. Picture a settler walking a forest path to a native village, his pack heavy with glass beads or iron tools, their surfaces gleaming faintly in the dappled light. The path is narrow, its surface worn smooth by countless footsteps, the air cool with the scent of pine and moss. At the meeting place, a clearing where the ground is soft with fallen leaves, indigenous traders weight their baskets filled with furs, their texture soft and warm, or dried corn, its kernels hard and golden. The exchange is careful, each side watchful but open, the air filled with the faint smoke of a native fire and the rustle of goods being inspected. These moments of trade were a bridge across cultures, though not without tension, as misunderstandings or competing claims to the land could strain the fragile trust. The filth of colonial life was as present in the marketplace as anywhere else. The clearing, churned by feet and wheels, was often muddy, its surface slick and treacherous after rain. Stalls were surrounded by refuse broken eggshells, vegetable peels, or fish scales that gleamed in the dirt, their odors sharp in the warm air. The settlers' clothes, patched and stiff with sweat, carried the grime of their daily labors, and the goods they traded were not always clean. A sack of grain might be dusted with chaff, a jug of cider cloudy with sediment. Sanitation was a challenge, with no easy way to wash hands or goods, and the nearby privy or stream added its own faint stench to the air. Yet the marketplace thrived, its chaos a testament to the settlers' determination to sustain their community to commerce. With distant colonies or England brought rare luxuries, though at great cost. Imagine a merchant ship docking at a colonial port, its timbers creaking under the weight of cargo, the air heavy with the salt of the sea and the faint sweetness of molasses barrels, the goods fine cloth, iron pots, or even a few precious books are unloaded onto a muddy wharf, their surfaces damp from the journey. These items, traded for tobacco or furs, were a lifeline to the wider world, but their arrival was uncertain, delayed by storms or the whims of trade routes. Picture a settler family receiving a bolt of linen, its texture smoother than their homespun wool, their fingers tracing its weave with quiet wonder. Such goods were rare, hoarded for special occasions, their presence a reminder of a world beyond. The settlement's muddy paths. The marketplace was also a social hub, a place where news and stories were traded as readily as goods. Imagine a group of settlers gathered around a stall, their voices low as they share word of a distant conflict, a new law, or a neighbor's misfortune. The air carries the scent of tobacco smoke and the faint tang of cider, sipped from a shared jug. These moments of connection, though fleeting, were vital in a world where isolation was a constant threat. Disputes sometimes arose over the value of goods, a broken promise, or a stray cow, but they were often settled with words, the community's need for harmony outweighing personal grudges. The marketplace, for all its filth and bustle, was a microcosm of colonial life, where survival depended on cooperation and exchange. The rhythm of trade was a constant in the settlers' lives, a pulse that beat alongside their daily labors. Picture an evening in the settlement, the marketplace quiet now, its stalls packed away, the air cool with the scent of dusk and distant wood smoke. A family returns home, their pack heavier with traded goods and new axe, its handle smooth, a sack of beans, their weight reassuring. The cabin's hearth glows softly, its light casting shadows on walls patched with clay, and the family's voices are low, recounting the day's exchanges. Their world, marked by scarcity and struggle, was also one of ingenuity, where every trade was a step toward endurance. Let this rhythm linger, a gentle reminder of the human drive to connect and sustain, as you drift deeper into the past or toward the quiet of sleep. Thank you for typing continue. Since we've completed the original 4 segments and added 8 more segments 5 to 12. For the script, Filthy Living Conditions in Colonial American Settlements, Boring History for Sleep, I'll assume you'd like to further extend the script with another segment. To maintain the cohesive narrative and adhere to your core principles, stylistic requirements, and calming tone, I'll create a 13th segment focusing on a new aspect of colonial life that complements the previous segments. This segment will target approximately 25 to 45 minutes of narration, with rich sensory details, a slightly detached yet intimate tone, and careful handling of grim content to avoid graphic descriptions. Proposed segment 13, The Natural World and its Challenges, exploring how the colonial settlers interacted with the natural environment, including the forests, wildlife, and weather, and how these shape their daily lives and survival strategies. Below is segment 13, and I'll pause. Afterward, waiting for you to type continue if you wish to add more segments or provide further instructions, for example, a new topic, a revised conclusion, or a different direction. Given that we've extended the script significantly beyond the original 4-segment structure, I can also provide a new conclusion to tie together all 13 segments if you prefer. Just let me know your preference when you respond. Segment 13. The Natural World and Its Challenges, Living with the Land. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a colonial settlement, where the cleared fields give way to a vast, unbroken forest, its trees towering and dense, their leaves whispering in the breeze. It's early morning, and the air is cool, carrying the rich scent of pine, damp earth, and the faint musk of wild animals moving unseen in the underbrush. In this world, the natural environment is both provider and adversary, a force that shapes every aspect of the settlers' lives. The forest offers timber and game. The rivers yield fish and water. But the land also brings storms, pests, and predators that test the settlers' resilience. As you settle into this story, let the gentle rhythm of their struggle with the natural world guide you, a soothing thread in a tapestry woven with effort and endurance. The forest was the settlers' greatest resource and their greatest challenge. Picture a man venturing into its shadows, his axe heavy in his hands, its wooden handle worn smooth by use. The air is thick with the scent of resin and moss, the ground soft with fallen leaves and needles. Each swing of the axe sends a sharp crack through the silence, the blade biting into a tree's bark, its wood splintering with a faint, sweet smell. Felling a tree is slow work, the labor leaving his hands blistered and his shoulders aching. But the timber is vital for building homes, crafting tools, or feeding the hearth that keeps his family warm. The forest floor, littered with twigs and roots, is treacherous, and the ever-present mud clings to his boots. Its weight a constant reminder of the land's resistance. Clearing land for fields was a monumental task, one that defined the settlers' relationship with the environment. Imagine a family working together, their hands wielding hoes and mattocks, the air filled with the earthy smell of turned soil and the sharp tang of crushed weeds. The ground is stubborn, choked with roots and stones, each one pried loose with effort, the clatter of rocks echoing in the clearing. The filth of this work is inescapable. Sweat and dirt streak their faces, their clothes stiff with grime, and the air carries the faint odor of decay from organic matter unearthed in the process. Yet each cleared patch is a triumph, a space where corn or squash might grow. Their green shoots a fragile promise against the forest's encroaching shadow. Wildlife was both a boon and a threat. Picture a settler setting traps along a riverbank, the water's surface glinting in the sunlight, its air cool with the scent of damp stones and fish. A successful trap might yield a beaver, its fur soft and warm, or a rabbit, its meat a welcome addition to a thin stew. The process, though, is fraught with difficulty. The traps, made of wood and twine, are often damaged by weather or scavengers, and the settlers' hands grow raw from handling the coarse materials. Predators, too, lurked nearby. Wolves, their howls piercing the night, or bears, their presence marked by disturbed earth near a midden heap. These encounters were rarely violent, but carried a quiet menace, a reminder that the land was not fully tamed. The rivers and streams, vital for water and food, were also unpredictable. Imagine a woman kneeling by a stream, her hands plunging a wooden bucket into the current, the water cold and sometimes cloudy with silt. The stream's banks are slick with mud, and her apron is damp from the effort of hauling water back to her cabin. Fishing, another lifeline, required patience and skill nets woven from hemp or lines baited with worms. The air heavy with the scent of fish scales and river mud. A good catch could feed a family for days. The fish smoked over a fire to preserve it, their flavors sharp and earthy. But floods could swell the rivers, washing away nets or fouling the water with debris, leaving families to rely on dwindling stores. Weather was a relentless force, shaping the rhythm of survival. Picture a summer day, the air thick with humidity, the sky heavy with the threat of a storm. The settlers worked quickly to secure their crops, their hands tying stalks or covering seedlings with burlap, the fabric coarse against their skin. When the storm breaks, the rain is torrential, turning paths into rivers of mud, the air sharp with the scent of wet earth and ozone. Homes, though built to withstand the elements, often leaked, the thatched roofs dripping onto earthen floors, the air inside damp and musty. Winter brought its own trials, snow piled high, its weight-straining roofs, the air biting with cold. Imagine a settler trudging through drifts to gather firewood, his breath visible, the axe's handle icy in his hands, the scent of snow mingling with the faint smoke of distant hearths. The filth of the natural world was a constant companion. Mud clung to everything: boots, clothes, even the tools used to work the land. The forest's undergrowth harbored ticks and insects, their bites leaving settlers scratching at reddened skin, the irritation a small but persistent burden. Waste from livestock or wildlife added to the settlement's odors, mingling with the ever-present smell of smoke and decay. Disease, too, found allies in the environment's stagnant water-bred mosquitoes, carrying fevers that swept through families, their symptoms a quiet dread in the close confines of a cabin. Yet the settlers adapted, learning to read the lands signs, the flight of birds signaling a change in weather, the growth of certain plants marking fertile soil, the tracks of game leading to a hunt. The natural world was both a challenge and a teacher. From indigenous neighbors, settlers learned to use the land's resources: bark for medicine, reeds for baskets, or the sap of maples for a rare sweetness. Picture a settler woman walking with a native guide, the air cool with the shade of trees, her hands learning to strip bark or gather berries, their juice staining her fingers. These lessons were a quiet exchange, their value measured in survival. The settlers' lives, bound to the land's rhythms, were a constant negotiation: clearing fields, trapping game, enduring storms, all while surrounded by the filth and beauty of the wilderness. As we leave the natural world behind, we carry the image of a settler standing at the forest's edge, his hands worn but steady, his eyes tracing the horizon where trees meet sky. Their world, marked by mud and struggle, was also one of adaptation, where every tree felled, every fish caught, was a step toward endurance. Let this rhythm linger, a gentle reminder of the human dance with nature, as you drift deeper into the past or toward the quiet of sleep.